Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to present today. My name is Christine Burrow. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of a company called Torngat Metals. We're developing a rare earth project in Quebec, and I'm pleased to speak with you today about the logistics needs that we have to realize our project. A brief overview of our company. We're a privately owned company. We're headquartered in Montreal. Our plan for our project is to go from creating a new mine and all of the steps in between to produce separated rare earth products. And our goal, our ambitious goal, is to be in production by 2028. Our project as a rare earth project is quite unique in that we're able to supply substantial quantities of all of the permanent magnets that go into all of the rare earths that go into this technology called permanent magnets, both the two light rare earths that are used in this application, as well as the two heavy rare earths that are used. And those are neodymium and praseodymium and dysprosium and terbium. And there's increasing amount of discussion in all corners of the supply chain and with governments about the importance of these four rare earths. Right now, our project, we're very fortunate to be funded all the way to our bankable feasibility study. And that's because we were able to line up with a strategic investment partner. Their name is Cerberus Capital Management. They are investing $50 million US into the project, which is the largest single investment in rare earths in Canada. And that investment came in late 2022. And the reason they invested in Torngat Metals and in our Strange Lake Rare Earth project is because we're a foundation for their mine to magnet strategy that they have within their supply chain and strategic opportunities fund that they just set up in the last few years to look at opportunities for securing areas of economic and national security for the Western world. As well, of course, the critical minerals are an important topic for governments across the world, but in particular, in our case, for the government of Quebec, Newfoundland and Labrador, and as well as Canada came out with their critical mineral strategy in 2022. And so we have strong alignment with all of those strategies, where heavy rare earths is recognized as one of the most critical minerals and a huge opportunity for Canada to play an important role in supporting the global energy transition from a fossil fuel-based economy to a mineral-based economy. So I've spoken already a little bit about these things called permanent magnets. And permanent magnets is a technology that's incredibly important to support this transition as part of fighting climate change. Many technologies, including electric vehicles, not only passenger cars, but trucks, buses, and other mobility technologies are dependent on rare earth-based permanent magnets, as well as things like wind turbine generators and robotics and drones. All of these technologies use permanent magnet based technologies because the permanent magnets create the most efficient versions of motors and generators. And efficiency is quite crucial in terms of reducing the energy consumption. And in applications like electric vehicles, a permanent magnet-based electric drivetrain motor is the smallest and lightest solution for a vehicle. And of course, lightweighting a vehicle, especially ones reliant on batteries, it's very crucial. And so I already mentioned these elements, rare earth elements that are called light rare earths, NdPr, so neodymium and praseodymium. Those two elements are magnetic, and they're fundamental to what makes a permanent magnet, which is basically the strongest magnet we can produce. But the other two elements that I've mentioned, the heavy rare earths or dysprosium and terbium, they're also fundamental. They are very complementary. In small quantities, they help create a stronger magnet. They make sure that magnet stays as a high performance magnet by providing performance even under high temperature operation, like in a drivetrain motor. And although dysprosium and terbium are quite high priced metals, especially compared to even lithium or nickel, they are the most cost effective solution in a motor and in the whole vehicle platform or in the wind turbine. But the challenge is that there isn't enough supply of these elements, and the current supply is really dependent on China. And so that really drives our mission. Our sole mission is to supply secure and responsibly produced rare earth oxides. And the only way we believe that we'll be successful is by having and developing and maintaining and prioritizing partnerships with the Indigenous communities which will be impacted by our project. I'll show a map in a moment demonstrating where our project is. We have a number of Indigenous communities with whom our footprint is going to impact and with whom we must have strong partnerships, and moreover, who have a significant contribution to make our project better and more successful. And that's really our long-term goal, is to have multi-generational social and economic benefits from this project. And so our approach, as the corporate world has transitioned away from using the term sustainability or corporate social responsibility, the new term for that is now ESG, or environmental, social, and governance. And we've recognized that our partnership with Indigenous communities and their importance to this project undercuts all of those. And so we're now using the term ISG. And in order to accomplish all of this, we need to use a lot of innovation to reduce our environmental carbon and cost footprint, because to be successful, we need to, and to be successful in the long term, we need to have a project that can have the lowest impact, and also that's very complementary to have the lowest cost footprint, because we need to be a financially attractive project in the long term so that we can continue to invest in all of our ISG priorities. And I've taken a few moments to emphasize this part of our strategy, because it's really one of the key drivers around our interest in cargo airships, which I'll get to in a few slides. So just to orient us a little bit, this is a photo of the exploration camp that we currently have at the future mine site. So the deposit that we're proposing to mine in the future is just off screen of this slide. And we've been spending the last few years doing extensive drilling to make sure that we understand exactly what we have in this deposit and how much rare earths we have, and understanding how cost effectively we can extract those rare earths and bring them to market. And also, of course, this has been the base for doing all of our environmental baseline studies in terms of understanding the plants and animals and everything else that's there now, so that we can closely understand our impacts and plan for reducing those impacts, and of course, as well, importantly, because of the government regulatory processes that we need to go through before we can get our permits. Here's a map of our project. What's important about our project is that we have two main sites and essentially three components. So we have two sites, one in northern Quebec and one on the north coast of the Strange Lake, of the St. Lawrence River. And connecting that, we need logistics. And so that's where I'll get to in a moment and explain our interest in cargo airships. So first of all, the deposit is in the north. It's a remote site. And there we'll plan to put in an open pit mine and an on-site concentration plan so that we can reduce the amount of material that we need to ship off-site for further processing. And I'll mention again, our project is very unique. The amount of rare earths that we have is globally significant and will have a global impact on the ability for us to fight climate change through rare earths being core to the technologies that are required, like electric vehicles and wind turbines. And so once we've produced this concentrate, we have to get it out of the mine site and to a location that makes sense to do the next stage in processing, which is more energy intensive and requires a access to an ecosystem of technologies, chemicals, universities, colleges, CEGEPs, and that's why we've chosen Sept-Îles as our proposed site to put the second site where we do the advanced processing and then produce the finished rare earth products for the market. So connecting those two, because we want to get into production as quickly as possible. Right now, our only solution is to build a mine access road, and then to go by ship to Sept-Îles with containerized shipping. In the future, when this kind of project is done in the future, I hope that cargo airships are ready. But for now, we've done a lot of work to optimize our logistics footprint and to minimize the impact as much as possible. And we've done a lot of work on looking at all of the alternatives, whether that's road, whether that's shipping, whether that's rail. And this is the strategy that we've come up with that has the lowest environmental and cost footprint. So we're not talking about, in terms of the access road, it'll be a single lane access road, not an ice road, but a road that we'll use in the winter season when we can take advantage of the ground being frozen in order to minimize the disturbance we have on the land. And then the volume that we're shipping, because rare earths is a very high value metal, we're not shipping a lot of volume. We're shipping a fraction of the volume of other mine materials like iron ore, certainly much higher volumes, and even compared to other base metals. And then by containerized shipping during the ice-free season to Sept-Îles, that we're proposing for the location of this refinery. Sept-Îles is an ideal place because it's already a city very industrialized with a deep water port, and that's focused on metallurgy and mining, where we can have a successful operation with the ecosystem around it to do that. And then finally, being able to produce those high purity separated rare earth oxides that can go right into the permanent magnet supply chain. And from Sept-Îles, we can ship anywhere in the world. Right now, all of the markets for our products are outside of Canada. Hopefully in the future, Canada will have the downstream supply chain for magnets. But right now, we'll be shipping to the US, Europe, and Japan. And that was another reason for our selection of Sept-Îles, because we can get to any of those places cost effectively with our products. So as I mentioned already, we need logistics to connect those two sites. We did a lot of work to optimize what we do at both sites to minimize our cost and environmental footprint. But because, of course, like many deposits in Canada, they're in the north, they're in remote. And so for us, we see the infrastructure challenge as not only enabling our project, but it's as well, we're looking forward with our project, having a 30-year mine life, is we know that the logistics that we create can potentially enable future projects in the region. Labrador and northern Quebec have huge mineral wealth that could be developed as long as it's developed in the right way and in partnership with the Indigenous communities. And so we definitely see our infrastructure that we have, that will build in the short term and that will develop over the long term to be not only vital to what we're trying to do, but vital to the development of the region. And so in terms of the volumes that we're shipping, as I mentioned, we're going to ship using maritime containers, nothing different than what's already happening, and shipping about 200,000 tons a year. And just to orient you a little bit, the rare earth concentrate that we'll be producing is worth, at that stage as a concentrate already, thousands of dollars per ton. And of course, we need to bring supplies inbound to the mine, fuel, raw materials, cargo, and of course, supporting all the camp operations. So we're proposing a one-lane mine access road of about 170 kilometers, and that we'd operate for up to 5 months. We think we can ship all the material in less than that, but that's a rough timeline. And certainly we are looking at climate change and the impact on climate change will have on our plan to use this as a winter road. But we understand that that's something that we'll have to look at continually, not just for the first 5 or 10 years of operations, but we're planning to have an operations for the next 30 years. And so looking at winter road operations in the long term is also something as part of our strategic planning when we look at what this operation could look like in the future. We're planning to go to the coast of Labrador at a bay called Voisey's Bay. This is actually a bay just south of where Vale, Voisey's Bay, nickel mine and processing plant is located. Vale is actually located in Anactalac Bay, and I'll show you a picture and a map in a moment. And there we'll have a floating dock operation that we'll use during the ice-free months, very typical as what other mining companies have done. And and of course have some operations there at the port to manage this. So we've costed all of this out, both from a capital cost and operating cost, as well as all of the things that we need to get this permitted and designed appropriately. And this is all something that we can do within our economics and have a very financially attractive project. So here's the map of the middle of Labrador and northern Quebec. So the mine site is on the Quebec side of the Newfoundland and Labrador border, which is this gray line that runs from the top part of the slide to the bottom part of the slide in gray. And then the orange line and red line is the routing of this access road that we're proposing, the 1-lane seasonally used access road. We looked at many, many different tracings for this. These are only 2 of them that we looked at, but we looked at going many other directions, directly south, even to go north, and many, many different ways to bring this out. And we landed on what's called here road option C, access road option C. It's our preferred access routing, because we also have to deal with the landscape here. This is in places very, very rugged terrain, and in some places with some cliffs and very difficult topography, especially as we get close to the coast. And as well, we needed to get to the coast somewhere where we can have port operations, and that's why the routing is the where it is, and that's road option C is what we're taking forward through the community engagement, Indigenous discussions around partnering around this logistics, as well as with all the environmental and regulatory reviews that we need to go through. So that's all great. And that all gets us to a project that we can bring into construction, hopefully, assuming that we get all of the approvals and develop agreements with all the Indigenous partners. But when we look at the long term, we're always going to be looking to leverage innovation to make what we do better. And that's where we see cargo airships playing a potentially really important role in the future. We think, having spent a lot of time looking at cargo airships, we think they're going to be a game changer for many things. And in our case, where we're experts and becoming experts in is mining in Canada's north. And that's where Canada's mineral wealth is located. There's many world-class deposits, not only ours, that could be developed, and especially in the field of critical minerals, which are essential to fighting climate change. And for any remote site, logistics challenges like ours are going to be the case. And when cargo airships hopefully are available in the future, mining companies can look at using cargo airships instead of building fixed infrastructure. And it will really make looking at new projects can be done in a completely different way. I don't think I'm overstating how much of a game changer they can be. Not only for having logistics that can be put in place much quicker than building roads or building ports or building rail, but as importantly as all of those things, I put this point first, is for the communities in the north cargo airships can provide significant social and economic benefits for them to develop their communities, to address the challenges that they have today and will have in the future, and create business opportunities that they can drive and create opportunities to have skilled jobs in the communities, not only associated with the transportation, but creating the opportunities for businesses to be built and grown within the communities, as opposed to community members having to leave their communities to have advanced business and job opportunities. And for us, we also look at this somewhat selfishly, because the stronger the communities, our partner communities are, the better our project will be. And the better that we'll have attractive economics and alignment with ESG values, which is what cargo airships can bring. Cargo airships have lower CO2 emissions. When the climate change continues to happen and we see changing climate patterns with maybe spells during the winter season that suddenly warm up and impact whether that's ice road for other projects or our winter seasonally used road. We don't know what that's going to look like in 20 years. So cargo airships are really about also future-proofing our strategy. Cargo airships would have a much smaller footprint on the land than building infrastructure, and they also allow a very different profile in terms of managing risks. Risks in terms of when you can operate, risks in terms of environmental risks, in terms of being able to operate with contingency plans, for example, in our case, managing around the caribou migration season that happens across the landscape where we're operating, and gives us additional flexibility in terms of managing our operations to minimize the disturbance during the migration season. And for airships, many remote projects, their logistics are all planned around seasonality, and airships don't have that seasonality element. They can be used year round. For a mine, of course, any mine that's developed has to have a closure plan, and you have to have a closure plan for everything that you build, including your infrastructure. And so you don't need to decommission infrastructure, or in some cases, communities may want to take on that infrastructure, but it's a very different calculation if you have the option not to need to decommission physical infrastructure. For airships, decommissioning means redeploying the airship to another application where it can be reused. And the term that we think speaks volumes is the idea of movable infrastructure. And it says a lot in those two words when you think about that compared to the infrastructure as we look at it today. And lastly, I'll mention, in our case, we need to move ahead with traditional infrastructure, although we're trying to be as innovative and creative as we can in terms of minimizing our footprint and our cost footprint of the infrastructure that we'll build. But for projects in the future that don't need to do that, infrastructure could be removed from a project's critical path. And for any project in the North, that is definitely in and of itself a game changer. So that's sort of at a high level for mining projects in general, and a little bit in terms of our case. But digging a little deeper into what the implications could be for Strange Lake when airships moving cargo are commercially available, we are very interested to seek out a long-term contract for cargo airship service on a dollars per kilometer per metric ton moved basis. Our interest is not to become experts in airships. We don't want to own airships. We don't want to operate airships. But we see a huge opportunity for companies to build airship service companies and all of the ecosystem around that, and provide that service to companies like Torngat. And we'd love to be a first mover in this space. And for us, it doesn't mean replacing the infrastructure that we're building in the near term if our project gets a chance to proceed. Airships will be a game changer in that they'll be complementary to this infrastructure that we're planning to build. The base case, and we've run the economics, is very compelling to combine both the traditional infrastructure that we're building and the cargo airships. We'll be able to extend our shipping season. We'll be able to optimize our transportation, both of workers and cargo, for both timing and scheduling. It's another opportunity for Indigenous-owned businesses to do that in partnership with servicing the needs of our mine site. And provide them other opportunities to take the logistic services that they could be providing to us and create other business development economic opportunities, not only in mining, but all kinds of business opportunities could potentially open up. As well, communities aren't well served by annual sea lifts, complemented with fixed wing, high-priced fixed wing. That there could be much more cargo, like housing materials, going into communities year-round. And also when there's emergencies. We just had this winter a community not in northern Quebec, but in Canada's north, where they had issues with their power generation plant, and there was a fire at a apologies, I need to close this, or a fire at a grocery store. Airships could support those kind of emergencies right now that are so disruptive and impactful to the communities, where it could go from emergency to, hey, we'll just get some cargo airships up there and we'll handle it, and it won't be nearly as difficult a situation as it can be today. For us as well, using the airships, because of all those reasons I already mentioned, we can reduce our cost footprint. As I mentioned, the infrastructure that we've designed today, it creates a very attractive, compelling business case for our project, but we're always going to be looking for an ability to reduce our costs, and that's certainly what cargo airship transportation service could bring. Of course, we're always going to be looking to reduce our carbon footprint, and airships have a much smaller carbon footprint than trucking or maritime transportation. And finally, it gives us ways to relook at safety. Reducing the number of drivers we have on the road is going to improve safety. And so if we can use the road, optimize its and minimize its use by complementing that with airships, it's a huge opportunity to look at making sure that we're using this innovation to improve the lives of our workers and provide jobs that where, for example, with drivers, we have to be very careful about fatigue in this kind of driving, and so giving another way to address that specific concern is just one example, is very compelling for us. And I already mentioned this word a few times, ecosystem. So we need not only, the actual airships themselves, and we don't need airships just from one manufacturer. We need multiple manufacturers. We need the companies who are going to finance these airships and who insures these airships. We need airship operators. We need training for pilots. We need the multimodal logistics management systems. We need not just one committed user like us, but many committed first users who want to take advantage of this and not wait for someone else to do it first. And that includes everything that we need to get that into place. And one of them, of course, is cold weather testing, because the opportunity for cargo airships in the mining space is really in Canada's north. And so we need to assure that all of the testing that's required is going to be able to happen in time to support all of the ecosystem that's required, so that we can realize this game changer that could affect our project and could affect future mining development and much farther beyond mining opportunities as well. And that's all the material I wanted to cover. My contact information is here, and I understand there's some time for questions.
Thank you very much, Christine. I'm losing my voice this morning, sorry. I'll just unmute some of the other people. I see that Michael Hainsworth has joined us too. And there. So again, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very informative and it gives a great overview of what's going on. I have a couple of questions of my own, but maybe I'll turn it over to other ones if Ross or Fred or Michael have any questions you want to, then just go ahead. We have a very small crowd here at the moment, so just go ahead with any question you have. Fred or
Well,
Michael?
I was going to say thank you very much, Christine, for the presentation this morning. It's excellent. I always enjoy seeing the updates on this. I've been very much following the progress of this as it's going on. And it's really nice to see the general arc of this is progressing in a positive direction. I did have one question just with regard to the nature of infrastructure. One of the things that we're working on at BASI is producing a device that would allow for cargo airships to be handled more effectively and smoothly to be able to allow for efficient transfer. I'm wondering if there would be interest from Torngat or from other people to potentially take on part of or maybe some of the cost involved in having that infrastructure in place, as it is a mobile infrastructure that could be taken up and moved after certain amounts of use. I'm just sort of curious about the potential appetite for that.
Well, I'll answer that maybe more generically. Our project is only successful because we're working in partnership with every aspect of what we're doing, whether that's engineering, whether that's environment, um, is it's working in partnership. So in general, the answer is yes, especially when it comes to innovation that we think is important for us. We're definitely interested to have lots of conversations. I certainly can't speak to whether, in fact, we would invest in this, but certainly we realize that if this is going to happen, we need people to step forward and collaborate and work together, and so we can follow up afterwards.
For sure. Thanks so much. Yeah, and again, it's not necessarily invest as a notion of the development, but more in if we were to have something that was a finished product that would allow for you to be able to serve your airships more quickly and safely, if there would be an appetite for that. Which again, I think it sounds like the answer is most likely, but we'd have to obviously bring something to the table that's developed.
Yeah, and when I say invest, like for me, our our biggest challenge is human resources in a project like ours. There's just so much work to do, and so we're pretty careful, especially now going into 2025, which is really crunch time for our project, developing the and finalizing both the pre-feasibility study and the feasibility study. So we've been very mindful around that, but uh, certainly it'd be great to follow up with you, Ross. Thank
For
you.
sure. Thanks so much.
Okay, Fred, any questions? Just a minute here, Fred, to have you on. Turn your volume up. I can't hear you. Can't hear you still. Right now it shows me not on mute, so just you have to turn your volume up somehow. Nope. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear your voice speaking.
Maybe I could type a question into the chat. Maybe an option as well too, or it could be a microphone issue.
Okay, so yeah, if you go to the bottom of the screen, his microphone is not muted, so it's just a volume. So I'm not sure where.
It's Michael's microphone that's not muted.
Yeah, I've just turned mine off. I was quietly
Oh,
listening in the
okay.
background,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry I came to the meeting a few minutes late.
Well,
But very, very interesting. No questions at the moment from me, but I am keenly interested in seeing how this transitions.
so my question while we're waiting, and Fred, I'm just thinking that maybe wherever your volume is on your computer for your audio, that's what you need to adjust. I'm not sure if that's at the top of your screen, where it is, depending on your. or you can type
Volker,
it.
if he's using it on the computer, there's a possibly a small arrow next to where the microphone is that you can click, and that allows you to be able to select which system you're using for your microphone. I've had this problem prior with using this system before, where it's got me selected on a microphone that doesn't exist or it doesn't have one selected.
Yeah, so
Because he's not muted, so it must be just something within the technology.
Great. So on the lower left-hand side, there should be a little audio icon and word. Fred, take a look there, and there's an arrow. You click on it and it may give you some choices as to which speaker you want to be able to use. The other thing you can do is along the bottom it says chat. If you click on that, it'll allow you to type something in. I wanted to say that. Christine, while we're trying to fix that, I just have another question for you too, is that obviously you did a lot of work in sort of the road cost analysis as to which route and the choices about seasonal or all weather. So was that an exhaustive process, or how did you determine the cost per kilometer building a road in Quebec and Labrador?
It was a very exhaustive process. We we redid the process a few different times. Both leveraging, making sure that the estimates that we had from the past, we had to update them, of course, because of inflation. And we used different engineering firms to just double check our work. We got also partners involved, even outside of the road engineering firm. But for example, one of the firms doing our environmental baseline work, SEM, they're an Inuit company, initially based in Labrador, who know the terrain and the landscape, who could also input on our assumptions about what could be done and so on and so forth. So we're quite confident in our estimates, especially with the approach that we're doing where we can, especially as the road first leaves the mine site. We took the approach to have a forestry type road, which means that we'll have more maintenance, because we know that every season before we start again, we'll need to do some maintenance. But that's the trade-off. We'd rather have a bit more maintenance and lower our capital costs. And that's, there's things like that we thought through to minimize the upfront cost of the road. And then as we go along in our operation, depending on when we think cargo airships are going to come, we can upgrade the road to avoid areas where we know we're doing maintenance every year because of washouts in the summer. But that's decisions that we can take in the future based on leveraging cash flow. Of course, in any mining project, you need to minimize your initial capital outlay, and a road is a huge initial capital outlay. But certainly with our engineering partners, we've come up with a number of ways to reduce the cost per kilometer dramatically. This is not a $3 million a kilometer road. It's far, far lower than that, but comes with trade-offs.
And I think I've heard that sort of an anticipated cost from $3 to $5 million per kilometer in those kind of regions. Is that?
No,
not at all.
No, not even close.
Okay, more than.
No, much less.
I see. Okay.
Much less.
Okay, because when we look at all the mining development in northern Manitoba, they're all linked to road access, and that's the element here. Is that how do you access those deposit sites if they're not there, right? And that's another hindrance, I guess, because critical minerals are an important part of Manitoba's, government policy as well. So, Fred,
so we'll have a pre-feasibility study next year, and that'll outline the cost, but it's far, far less in our case.
Fred, I'm thinking
just to confirm on that as well too. I gather this is partly due to it being a single lane road as well too. Ultimately,
that's right.
The nature of a lot of the, like, if you're looking at a $3 million cost for a road, typically that's more, and it's also an average too, because it's not necessarily that every kilometer costs that, but that some kilometers might cost 8 or 10 million, where other ones might be $1 million, just for the nature of how much groundwork you have to do. And of course, if it's a 1-lane road versus a 2-lane road, that's going to be a significant difference. Does that change anything in terms of your traffic options, and like, do you have to do cutouts or passing lane pieces where you have parts of it that are double lane, or is it Like, sorry, I'll let you answer that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you've answered your own question. Yeah, we need to have passing lanes, but we're going to go out in convoys with two-way radios. So, we're going to minimize the amount of that. But of course, meeting all the regulations and the safety requirements that we need and so on. But exactly that by having it primarily a one lane road. Using it in the winter season allows us, we don't have to build up the gravel bed as much because in the shoulder seasons when the ground is very soft and wet, we don't need to build up the road to deal with that.
Indeed.
We need the road to be frozen, and that offers a huge cost savings. Of course, like I mentioned, the trade-off is there's going to be some maintenance that needs to be done every year, maybe more than if we had built up the road, but that's the right trade-off in our case.
No
Just
doubt.
because some kilometers, like you said, as we're going across the plateau, there's some places where we don't need to do really too much. And then other places where we need to do a bit more, but you'll see the cost is very, it's hard to compare this road to what else has been done. It's still expensive, but it's a different order of magnitude.
Indeed. One other thing about that, just do you have any notion of the relative speed that you'll be able to carry on that road in terms of like the amount of time that it'll be between mine site and delivery point?
They're not going to run too fast. I don't want to like. Of course, it's going to be less than 50 kilometers, but I don't an hour. But I shouldn't say a number even because that I should double
No,
check with
no,
engineering
no
because
problem.
they're looking at that right now.
Yeah, I was just curious if the engineers gave you an indication of that, because again, it's one of those things of two where I mean, there's the trade-off of the cost of the road versus how fast you can drive on it, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and here in our case, we're moving a pretty high value product.
yeah,
That's also something else to keep in mind.
indeed,
So.
for sure. Yeah,
Just
thank
to
you.
add to that topic, at our symposium, one of the guest speakers was Doug Jansen. He's with the provincial government. He's probably the top person who handles winter roads for Manitoba. He's been doing that for 20, 25 years. They've learned a lot how to do that. And there's a call in Manitoba because we have many remote Indigenous communities that have huge costs, freight costs, bringing things in over winter roads or air in the summertime. And they're trying to establish better ways of doing that as opposed to crossing over ice, finding high ground, but it's very, very rough terrain. So he had a number of different things that they are working on now to make those roads work, but it's very, very expensive, no doubt, depending on the location.
Volker, could you connect me with him?
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that.
Thank you.
And just another comment too is I'm thinking, Fred, if you have a question, why don't you call me and then everybody can hear you? Want to do that?
Or even just to type it into the chat as well too is another option.
Yeah, okay. It might be just as easy. Well, whatever you want. You can
Whichever way,
call me and then you'll be able to hear and speak back on your phone. So just give me a call. Michael, just another comment here. There was a sort of a fields to wheels presentation that was done, our webinar the other day that Barry Ross worked on in terms of getting, I mean, Ross can mention that too, looking at all different areas of the supply chain movement from ports to rail to roads and so on. Perimeter Air was a speaker there because they are an airline that services regions of northern Manitoba where it's isolated communities. And they talked about the needs for storage of buildings and because they have to haul things in. Sometimes they have to store things for a while before they can use them, whether that's cargo, fuel, or whatever. So they have a huge demand for that. So just something to be aware of, Michael, because that's an area, of course, that with your air beam technology that you might be able to use as well, right? Okay, the other thing.
Well, I'll that makes me think of one other point I was going to make. Our view is that cargo airships might actually increase the demand for fixed wing because if there's more activities going on in the north, you need all of the existing approaches and cargo airships will spur demand, I think. It's a conversation that goes beyond what we're doing as our project, but when conversations I've had with Barry or others, it seems clear that that we could be seeing more fixed wing and also increase the demand for even maritime shipping, because there'll be just more development, more going on in the communities that they can do in the communities. So
You can't
No.
see me, but I'm nodding my head for sure. Definitely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's a symbiotic type of technology that's going to help to increase business overall. And ultimately, if we can create more opportunities in the north, there'll be more reasons in general for people to travel back and forth. And ultimately, cargo airships initially, the goal is to have them mainly operating in the very specific cargo space, not moving passengers to begin with, as it's a hindrance in the regulations to be able to overcome to get through to that. And frankly speaking, people want to move fast. They don't want to spend all day on an airship. They'd far rather get on an airplane and be there quickly. So ultimately, there's absolutely a place continuous for fixed wing aircraft. We don't see really again any change in terms of reduction in anything, like you say, a little bit maybe of an increase, but just potentially a different type of use. One of the things that the perimeter chap was mentioning at the conference was effectively that the mix right now is somewhere in the 50-50 range of passengers to cargo, and we would probably see a shift to very very limited cargo or only very specific or valuable cargo that's small that could move that way, and that almost anything else would go on the airship just for the economics of it.
Now, one thing that we've done here as part of the airship task force is we've had a couple conversations, preliminary ones with Transport Canada, in terms of what are the regulations that will be required for airship OEMs to be able to be certified for performance in cold weather, extreme cold weather, snow and ice conditions. They haven't, I don't think they've resolved that all yet. Barry kind of feels that they may adopt some of the things from the United States, although, I mean, the US continental US doesn't have those kind of cold extreme conditions we have in northern Manitoba. So when that happens, that's one of the reasons we're trying to say, where will those conditions be tested? And that's our goal here in Thompson, because we have the assets from the climate to, hangar space and open pit mines and so on to utilize that. But I'm wondering, Christine, with your discussions, do you have any airship companies who are on the short list of being able to provide the service that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we have looked at all the airship technologies and we continue to do that and map them against our specific needs. Yeah, we certainly can talk about that some more offline.
Right. Because we have right now, and I'll mention this if I can at this point, the Thompson Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with Isopolar, which is Barry's sort of nonprofit entity for airship development, I put together a joint application for funding to a new funding agency called Manitoba Mine and Mineral Development Fund. That would just, their deadline was December 3rd, with the intent to raise $150,000 for an engineering feasibility study for cold weather testing conditions. And we're hoping in the next few weeks to find out if that's accepted. We've asked for 120,000. We have to raise 30,000 on our own here, and part of that application process, of course, we had to get letters of support and so on, which is, more goodwill than anything else. But they do have value because 4 airship companies have agreed to support our endeavor, because they know if they want to move stuff into the high Arctic or northern Quebec and so on, they'll need to find the performance requirements for cold weather conditions. So we know at least there's 4 companies out there interested in what we're trying to achieve at this end. So we'll certainly keep in touch as this moves forward. We'll find out I hope so, very quickly, if we can get these testing conditions approved for the engineers. Okay. What else can I say here? I'm just looking at this. Okay, unless anybody has any last questions, Ross and Michael and Fred, thank you very much for your time. If something comes up later on, we can always email you if you don't mind to answer a question to by email.
Yeah, love to
follow up that way.
Yeah, and then this one will be recorded, and I'm hoping within the next 10 days it'll be up on the website. So I'll let everybody know, because we had, I think, nearly 20 different speakers on there on all different transportation modes. I know companies are interested in one aspect or the other, so we'll make sure that's available to everybody. But I do appreciate your time and effort, and hopefully we continue to collaborate in some capacity as time goes on, Christine.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
All right, then.
Take care.
All right, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Have a warm day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Christine.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
My pleasure.
Fred, I'll give you a call later.
Trying to shut down. Okay. Bye, Volker. Bye-bye.
Bye
Great.
bye.
Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, just while I'll mention that, I saw that one picture you saw of their camp. They showed their camp on the edge of sort of really.
Yes, I did. Yes, yes.
You saw all those little structures there?
I took notice.
Yes,
and
of
because
course.
and because all I have is my phone right now, I took a photograph of the screen.
Okay.
But I think didn't you just mention that this will be available online in like another few days?
Yes, the whole thing has been recorded, so I'll see if I can send it completely to you, or I'm waiting to see if we have to get somebody to put this on our website. And there's 50, 60 gigabytes of video clips, so I have to see how that gets done. That might take a week or two yet. But
Got it. Well, maybe just getting a copy of maybe Christine's presentation, if that's possible.
That I can do, because I recorded this session today, so we'll see that. If it's email, available, I will do that. I'll let you know, and sometime today or tomorrow if I can send that to you. Okay.
Well, that'd be fantastic. That would be super appreciated.
Michael, thank you very much. Talk to you again.
Very good. Catch
Bye.
you all later.